Rebecca softly reveals that the riddle is, in truth, a song, leaving the Duke puzzled as he leans closer and asks if that is really true. She smiles playfully, asking if he wants to hear it. His lips curve as he questions if she would actually sing it for him, and she laughs, admitting she is no great singer, but she can try. Clearing her throat, she begins to sing, her voice carrying gently under the night sky. Carlyle listens with quiet admiration, a smile lingering on his lips, while she loses herself in the melody. When the final note fades, Rebecca lets out a small laugh and takes out a scarf, confessing that she had not sung it in so long she feared forgetting the lyrics. Carlyle's gaze stays fixed on her, his eyes full of awe as he tells her it was beautiful. Beaming, she thanks him warmly, and his smile deepens. She continues with the song, and when the part about disappearance comes, he stares at her with a sudden ache, wondering what he would ever do if she were to vanish from his side. Meanwhile, inside Rebecca's store, the manager gathers the employees and announces that with the weather turning colder, it is the perfect moment to promote their thermos bottles and containers. He orders them to focus on advertising those two products, and the staff responds with determination, shouting their agreement. The manager then strides to the entrance, pulling open the great gates with a bang. With a polite bow, he apologizes for the wait and thanks the customers, declaring proudly that the Rowanster store is now open for business. Elsewhere, within a lavish boutique in the Empire, a woman with brown hair lets out a groan as her eyes linger on an elegant dress. She thinks bitterly of how she can no longer spend freely with a child on the way. Grinding her teeth, she curses William's failures, wishing he had succeeded in developing his so-called new magic weapon. Instead, he wastes fortunes on rare materials, while their family is forced to sell precious artworks and villas just to survive. Stepping outside for air, she feels no relief. Once, she would have bought the dress without hesitation, but now every coin must be considered. Her frustration deepens until suddenly a group of noble ladies approach from behind. She turns, masking her turmoil as they greet her cheerfully, remarking how strange it is that they have not seen her in so long. Judith steps forward to greet the women, thinking to herself that they are merely low-ranking nobles whose husbands happen to succeed in investments. With a polite smile, she tells them it has been a while, but one of the younger ladies remarks slyly that Judith has not been attending any gatherings lately. Then, with a laugh, she adds that she heard rumors of the Oaklane family's financial troubles, asking if they are true. Another woman, dressed in green, giggles and says if that is really the case, she would be happy to help. After all, what are friends for? The group chimes in, boasting they have plenty to spare, their words dripping with mockery. Judith feels her face flush with anger, wondering how dare they ridicule her so openly. Forcing herself to remain calm, she explains there must be some misunderstanding, claiming she has simply stayed home because she is pregnant and her doctor advised her to be very careful. At once, the noble ladies congratulate her, though their voices carry little sincerity. They tease her further, asking if she came to buy maternity clothes, remarking that this shop is quite expensive, so perhaps the Oakline family is still doing well after all. With sharp smiles, they even offer to help her choose, asking whether she needs 10 dresses. Judith gasps inwardly, thinking she cannot possibly afford so many, but if she refuses, it will be as good as admitting her lack of money. Just then, a familiar voice calls from behind. All the ladies turn in surprise as Charlotte approaches with a warm smile. She greets Judith as if they are old friends, asking if this is truly their first time meeting since the engagement ceremony. Relief floods Judith, and she quickly hurries to Charlotte's side, laughing lightly as she says she did not realize how much time had passed and asks how she has been. To Judith, Charlotte feels like a savior, and she clings to the chance to change the subject. Charlotte answers that she has been well, then notices Judith's belly with wide eyes, exclaiming in shock that she is pregnant. Judith admits she is, and Charlotte congratulates her sincerely, asking if Rebecca has heard the news yet. When Judith replies she has not had the chance to tell her, Charlotte beams happily, saying she will deliver the good news on her behalf. Then, with a bright smile, Charlotte offers to give Judith a small gift to celebrate her new baby. Judith is caught off guard as Charlotte announces she will pay for all the maternity clothes Judith chooses today. Judith grasps her hand quickly, insisting it is unnecessary as she hates being a burden. But Charlotte presses her gently, asking her to please accept. Turning toward her butler, Charlotte orders him to purchase the maternity dresses on display. Judith stands frozen in shock, her mouth falling open before she bows deeply, thanking her with trembling gratitude. Charlotte congratulates her again with genuine warmth, while behind them the group of noblewomen seethe with envy at the sudden turn of fortune. Judith, still overwhelmed, tells Charlotte she hopes she is not taking up too much of her time, but Charlotte reassures her kindly. She explains that she was here anyway to collect the dresses and accessories she ordered for Ravika, pointing to the towering stack of gifts waiting at the back. Judith stares in disbelief, stunned at the sheer number of items, and realizes they are all for Rebecca. A sharp pang of jealousy twists inside her, though she hides it behind a smile. Trying to mask her feelings, she comments that Charlotte must have been busy lately. Charlotte nods, cheerfully mentioning that she has indeed been occupied developing new products. Judith asks curiously, what kind of products? And Charlotte replies with pride that she is working on new magic items for her family's company. Charlotte explains with a smile that the new magic items were flying off the shelves the moment they were released, so helping Judith with a few dresses was the least she could do. Judith nods, forcing a polite smile, but inside her mind races. An idea sparks. If Rebecca holds such influence, perhaps she can use it to her advantage. Maybe Rebecca could help her restore the wealthy life she once enjoyed. A few days later, Rebecca dresses elegantly, her expression bright with excitement. She turns to Rosaline and asks if she has gathered all the presents. Rosaline answers with a respectful nod, assuring her that everything is ready. Rebecca clasps her hands together with a happy smile, urging her to hurry, when Rosaline suddenly pauses. With a small bow, she informs Rebecca that Lady Judith has arrived. Rebecca blinks in surprise, her brows drawing together. She tilts her head slightly, puzzled by the visit. "Judith?" she murmurs, admitting aloud that she had actually been planning to visit her soon, but she cannot imagine why Judith would come to her first. Meanwhile, Judith steps inside, her eyes widening at the sight of Rebecca's residence. Everywhere she looks, sparkling treasures and luxurious ornaments catch her gaze, each more dazzling than the last. She gulps softly, steadying herself, and a dangerous thought crosses her mind. If she plays her cards carefully, Lady Rebecca just might be the key to letting her live a rich and comfortable life once again. As soon as Rebecca appears and gracefully sits down, Judith quickly lifts her teacup, remarking that it has been a while. Rebecca offers a polite smile and apologizes, explaining that she was actually planning to visit soon, but admits she has not been keeping in touch lately. She hopes Judith will understand, as she has simply been overwhelmed with work and responsibilities. Judith, however, cannot stop staring at her, silently marveling at her striking beauty. She thinks Rebecca has become so radiant, almost like a completely new person, surely receiving immense care and attention here. Even her elegant dress looks far more expensive than her own, adding to the envy burning in her chest. Rebecca gently slides a small box across the table, mentioning that she heard of Judith's pregnancy and wishing to congratulate her. She explains that it is not much, but she wanted her to have it. Judith curiously opens the box, only for her eyes to widen in shock. It is a pair of luxurious white gloves, delicately embroidered and decorated with tiny diamonds. Rebecca adds softly that she remembered Judith once mentioning her desire for these gloves, so she thought it fitting. Judith's lips twitch as she mutters under her breath that she now understands. Rebecca has become someone who can casually afford such extravagance. But Rebecca does not hear her quiet words, only offering a warm smile as Judith thanks her for the gift, insisting she will treasure and use them well. Trying to steer the conversation, Judith mentions that she visited Rebecca's shop yesterday, causing Rebecca to stiffen slightly. But before Rebecca can reply, Judith quickly assures her not to worry, explaining that she has changed her mind. Rebecca tilts her head, puzzled, asking if that means Judith now approves of her practicing alchemy, since she had always hated it before. Judith lets out a nervous laugh, admitting that back then she never realized Rebecca's creations would become so commercially successful. Still, unlike her brother remains displeased about it. She then adds slyly that she will defend Rebecca against him, but in return, she hopes Rebecca can help her out. Rebecca, confused, narrows her eyes and asks how exactly she could possibly help her. Judith exhales slowly, deciding to be frank, and smirks as she admits their household has been facing very difficult times. Leaning closer, she questions if Rebecca has not earned plenty of wealth from her magical items, suggesting that if she would simply share some of it, her brother would no longer oppose Rebecca's aspirations. Though embarrassed to confess such desperation, Judith convinces herself that Rebecca will most likely help since they are still family after all. Rebecca's expression hardens as she speaks, admitting she had heard whispers about the situation, but had thought their family had already sold nearly all of their assets. Should that not have been enough to pay off their debts? Judith sighs and, resting a hand on her tummy, explains that while the debts were cleared, they can no longer maintain their grand lifestyle. Rebecca's anger flares at the remark, her voice rising as she demands to know what that is supposed to mean. Judith bristles in return, her own tone sharp, asking if she really has to spell it out, pressing that Rebecca should just think of it as giving back to her family. Rebecca stares coldly at her words laced with fury, asking if Judith truly meant for her to finance nothing more than her extravagances. Judith begins to heat up as Rebecca points out that she had thought about it for some time, yet the truth remains that Judith really does overspend, making her flush with anger and shame. Rebecca continues, stating that even her mother, when she was the Countess, never treated herself with such indulgence, a remark that cuts sharply. Judith snaps back, insisting her mother was simply overly humble, declaring she does not even spend that much compared to others, and questioning whether Rebecca truly thinks she is doing this for herself. She raises her voice, shouting that she is now the lady of House Oaklean, with a reputation to uphold for the family, and she is not asking for much, only half of her earnings. Rebecca listens coldly, her expression unyielding, before speaking with biting clarity, asking if Judith has no sense of shame, words that leave Judith confused and unsettled. Rebecca continues with rising anger, reminding her that she has always looked down on her, yet now she is lowering herself, practically begging for money, shouting again to ask if she is not ashamed. Judith, puzzled and defensive, wonders what she means by begging, but Rebecca makes it brutally clear, stating that she is indeed begging for money, simply to keep wearing expensive dresses like everyone else. Judith is left stunned, her eyes wide in disbelief, unable to understand how Rebecca could say something so cutting and cruel. Rebecca winces, staring silently at Judith's face, memories flooding back of every time she had been taunted and scolded for no reason, of being belittled, of being told she had no friends because of her alchemy, and of Judith hoping she would leave them after marriage because it would help them more. She speaks up, her voice steady but sharp, telling her sister-in-law that she remembers everything Judith said to her, and wonders if Judith would have ever taken the time to confront her like this had she not been successful and made a fortune. Her words make Judith flinch when she suddenly springs up, shouting that Rebecca cannot treat her like this, and questioning how she thinks she got engaged to the Duke in the first place. Rebecca, eyebrow raised, asks if she means Judith is the one who arranged her engagement, to which Judith responds that she worked tirelessly to preserve Rebecca's reputation. Rebecca presses, asking if she means forcing her to attend all the parties, and Judith admits it, claiming she did it because Rebecca does not deserve to enjoy all these luxuries alone. Rebecca's patience snaps, and she turns sharply, telling Judith to leave. Judith protests, demanding to know if Rebecca will help them, but Rebecca, glaring with fury, firmly says no, instructing her butler to show her the way out. Later that night, at the Oaklean Manor, Judith is crying in William's arms, her sobs shaking him with worry. He asks why she is crying so bitterly, insisting it cannot be for the baby. She swings up at him, her voice sharp with accusation, blaming him entirely, lamenting that if he had not squandered the family fortune and had generated even a little wealth, she never would have had to humiliate herself in front of Rebecca. She cries that all she asked for was a little help, and William, confused, questions who she means, asking if she requested money from Rebecca. Judith shouts, affirming it, insisting that at this rate, William will never provide enough for her, yet she did not deserve to be insulted so cruelly. William's anger flares, mocking her indignation with frustration. After that, William storms into the Duke's manor, shouting for Rebecca, his voice echoing through the halls. A butler approaches him cautiously, asking him to calm down and offering to guide him to the drawing room first, but William ignores him, continuing to demand that Rebecca be brought out immediately. His shouting intensifies until Rebecca suddenly appears, her expression a mixture of confusion and concern, asking him what was going on and why he had arrived so abruptly. William, red-faced and fuming, shouts that he thought he had made himself perfectly clear. She was to quit practicing alchemy. Rebecca, startled but defiant, shouts back, questioning why she should ever give up her work. William bellows, incredulous, asking if she dared to frame that as a question, reminding her that she is the fiancée of Duke Rowanster and must behave properly if she wishes to marry. Rebecca's eyes blaze with determination as she shouts that she is an alchemist and that will never change, no matter what anyone says. William scoffs furiously, accusing her of creating nothing but useless garbage and questioning if she even dares call herself an alchemist. Rebecca, gritting her teeth, fires back, telling him not to insult her work, emphasizing that even the greatest minds have praised her creations and that her inventions are in high demand. William snarls, warning her not to get cocky and questioning if she thinks she is superior to him now. Rebecca smiles faintly, calmly asserting that he is the one acting arrogantly, as he has yet to create even a single thing of value. William grinds his teeth in frustration, realizing that if she truly unleashed her full potential as a genius alchemist, he would stand no chance, and he can barely manage to hold her back. Rebecca continues, her voice rising, declaring that she is creating items that genuinely help people and is carrying on the Oaklane legacy, using alchemy to benefit the lives of others. She shouts at him to stop interfering and to focus on his own career. William's fury reaches a boiling point, and he grabs her by the neck, shouting that she must give up alchemy immediately. Rosaline calls out in alarm, her voice trembling, but William continues to grip her tightly, insisting that his command as the head of the family must be obeyed. Even her necklace breaks under the pressure, the pearls scattering across the floor, mirroring her feelings of betrayal toward her brother. Rebecca glares at him, then reassures Rosaline that she is fine, even as William continues his tirade, ordering her to obey. Rebecca, unflinching, shouts back that she will not follow his order. With a burst of strength and defiance, she pushes him away, chastising him for always telling her to mind her manners and conduct, and demanding that he now examine his own behavior. She bends down to collect the fallen pearls, thinking of Charlotte, and sternly scolds her brother, questioning how he could come to her at such a late hour, displaying such rudeness, especially given that they were not even at the Oaklane Manor. Informing him that he is at the residence of the Rowansters, Rebecca further questions whether he is upset about Judith's visit. His hands tremble as she explains that Judith came to her because of his ineptitude. He shouts at her, demanding how she dares to act in such a manner. She retorts, questioning if she is wrong, and further interrogates how long he plans to squander their family fortune. Suddenly, he slaps her across the face, startling Rosaline. He declares that this is her punishment for insulting him and humiliating his wife, adding that if she does not cease practicing alchemy immediately, he will annul her engagement to the Duke and cast her out into the streets. He turns away, but Rebecca shouts at him, hurling her rope and binding him firmly. He panics, demanding to know what this is. She strides toward him, asking if the restraint feels uncomfortably tight, and mentions that it is still a work in progress, questioning how he managed to sleep. He shouts again, ordering her to release him at once. She smiles, declaring that this is his punishment for slapping and insulting her, and firmly asserts that she will never abandon alchemy, vowing to become a far greater alchemist than he could ever imagine. She turns away as he continues to bellow. Suddenly, Locke bursts in, sprinting toward his brother, shouting for him. He glances at Rosaline, asking if William is present. Hesitant, she confirms he is, and Locke's expression shifts to shock when he sees William bound on the floor. Back at the Oaklean Manor, the household buzzes with astonishment, staring at the magical item that restrained their lord, marveling that it can only be released with a significant infusion of mana. The bracelet impresses them with its ability to stretch and shrink effortlessly, its intricate mechanics complemented by the magic circle used to craft it. Suddenly, Rebecca's father appears, questioning the commotion so late at night. Locke turns to him, and his father gazes at the floor, bewildered, recalling what he had witnessed. Reflecting on his son, he inquires if he is interested in Rebecca's creations. Though still confused, he recalls seeing her inventions on her desk and remembers an older man chastising him, insisting that they could no longer ignore Rebecca's talent and urging him to acknowledge her as a fellow alchemist. He recalls Lloyd's words, pondering if he had been mistaken all this time, as he examines one of the bracelets and thinks of Rebecca. Meanwhile, Rosaline applies cream to Rebecca's face, while her father silently agrees, acknowledging that she is undeniably a prodigious genius. As soon as the ladies of the Rowanster estate learn of the situation, they become furious. Charlotte gnaws her lip, asking her mother how anyone could act so cruelly. Her mother responds that she had heard Rebecca's family disapproved of her pursuing alchemy, but she never imagined it would be this severe. Charlotte exclaims, insisting that she believed her family merely opposed the idea, but anyone who witnesses Rebecca's inventions would recognize her as an extraordinary alchemist, having crafted such remarkable creations, so why would they treat her this way? Her mother sighs, remarking that it is impossible to truly comprehend the mindset of some alchemists, but Charlotte continues, shouting that she cannot believe he even struck her, and she cannot fathom that the head of her family could behave in such a manner, thinking that Rebecca must be deeply distressed. She glances toward Rosaline, inquiring if they may enter, but Rosaline informs them that Rebecca requested to be alone and asked to be left in peace. The lady nods, instructing Charlotte to leave her for now so she can regain her composure, and Charlotte agrees, suggesting they buy the tarts Rebecca favors in the morning. Suddenly, Carlyle appears, walking toward them, and they are taken aback by his unexpected presence. He looks at them in mild bewilderment, asking why they are still awake so late. His mother shouts at him for returning home at such a late hour, while he questions if something has occurred. Charlotte explains that something dreadful has happened. Sometime later, he approaches Rebecca's door, knocking and calling her name. When she does not respond, he announces he will enter, but as he tries the doorknob, he finds it locked from the inside. Straining to open it, he finally manages to gain entry and freezes, horrified to see Rebecca with a glass of wine near her head. He shouts, asking if she is all right, and she awakens, her face lighting up with delight upon seeing him. He glances at the empty bottle, incredulous, questioning if she drank it all alone. She responds cheerfully that she can pour more while calling his name with a wide, radiant smile. He exhales with a small smile, asking if she is intoxicated, and she assures him she is not. He takes a seat beside her, suggesting they drink together, which delights her. She lifts her cup happily, but realizes there is no second glass. He reassures her, telling her not to worry, and proposes to drink from her cup. She begins sipping the wine as he lifts the glass, asking him what about her, and then takes a careful sip. Suddenly, he pats her head, leaving her puzzled, and asks softly if she had been feeling so sad. She shakes her head, saying no, and he studies her cheeks, noticing a slight redness, questioning if her brother had caused it. His gaze locks onto hers, leaving her dazed, and then she passes him the chess cube. He does the same, rubbing it between his fingers. She asks him if he realizes she is an alchemist, and suddenly exclaims that she is truly an exceptional one. He pats her head again, affirming that she is indeed remarkable, no matter what anyone else says. She grows silent for a moment, then suddenly asks if he knows why she is so extraordinary. He inquires why, and she leans closer, whispering that she wants to share a secret. He assures her that his lips are sealed and he will tell no one. She murmurs something into his ear, causing his eyes to widen in shock. He questions if it is true, and she laughs, confirming that it is. He asks if she has revealed it to anyone else, and she shakes her head, picking up the bottle. He stands, stating that this is all he needs to know. She asks for one more sip, and he lifts her into his arms, carrying her toward the bed. Confused, she looks at him, protesting that she cannot rest because the sun has not yet set, but he assures her that it has, and everything will be better in the morning. She questions him, asking if he is telling the truth, and he confirms, insisting that she sleep now. Suddenly, she shyly requests that he sleep beside her. They stand, her cheeks flushed from wine, his from shyness, and she closes her eyes. Later, he bows to his mother, informing her he must go somewhere. His sister asks where, and he reveals he is heading to the Oaklean Manor, instructing the butler to bring as much gold as possible. The butler nods, and his sister warns him not to cause trouble since they are still connected to Rebecca's family. He agrees, simmering with restrained anger. Early the next morning at the Oaklean estate, William sits silently before Carlyle, the room heavy with tension and an uneasy quiet. William breaks the stillness with a smile, noting that it is his first time visiting the estate so early, and asks if Carlyle has had breakfast. If not, they were just about to begin. Carlyle responds that he has come to offer an apology. Puzzled, William asks what he means. Carlyle clarifies, stating that he is referring to the incident in which William assaulted his fiancée. William bursts into laughter, exclaiming that he has no reason to apologize and that Rebecca is the one who should be apologizing to him. He grits his teeth, questioning if Carlyle understands what she did to him. Carlyle glares at him in anger, sending a chill down William's spine, and continues, stating that what she did to him is irrelevant. The only matter that concerns him is what she did to her own future husband. William refuses to relent, shouting that she deserved to be slapped for insulting him and his wife, insisting that she earned the punishment. He sprints in place, further accusing Carlyle of being at fault for allowing her to become such an ungrateful brat, yelling that he cannot fathom why Carlyle permits her to practice alchemy. Carlyle calmly points out that she only pursued what she wanted, questioning why that should concern William. William counters, insisting that she is still an Oaklean, and therefore it is his duty to correct her if she misbehaves. The Duke interrupts, stating firmly that William has no authority, reminding him that she is no longer merely his sister but his fiancée, and the only person who could oppose his decision is the Emperor himself. He emphasizes that the young woman William assaulted may be his sister, but above all, she is the fiancée of Duke Rowanster, and William must understand the gravity of that position. Before William can react further, Locke rises and stops his brother, asking the Duke to forgive them and allowing him to apologize on William's behalf, promising to ensure such behavior does not repeat, while attempting to restrain William. Observing Locke, Carlyle understands why Rebecca has always called him her favorite brother. Standing tall, the Duke turns to William with a stern warning. If he ever raises a hand against Rebecca again, it will be considered a declaration of enmity toward the Rowanster family. He exits the room, instructing his butler to hand over a bag, which is thrown onto the table. Carlyle further mentions that he is aware of William's family financial difficulties and that the funds can be used to maintain appearances. William trembles with anger, while Locke struggles to calm him, and William insists that the Oaklean family is perfectly capable and does not require Carlyle's money. The Duke's gaze hardens as he clarifies that this is not charity, but an order meant to prevent his wife from troubling his fiancée. He steps forward, reminding William not to forget this warning and to remember that he is not a man known for generosity. On the previous night at the Carseus estate, Haley's maid quietly whispers some news to her, revealing that she is from the Oaklean family and has brought the latest updates from the Oaklean estate. Haley thanks her promptly and tosses a gold coin to her as a reward. She then turns sharply toward the window, shutting it with a decisive click, muttering that this was exactly why she had planted a mole there. Her thoughts drift to her father's words, who once remarked that Lord Oaklean was foolish but still surprisingly useful, and she chuckles to herself, acknowledging the truth in that. Haley laughs softly, contemplating her next move, wondering whether she should begin by crushing that arrogant alchemist. She draws the curtain from the wall, frustrated that Carlyle has not yet realized her worth. She gazes at his enormous portrait, thinking that she is the only woman deserving of him, and wondering what steps she must take, what obstacles she must destroy to make him understand her value and feel the deepest despair. Her laughter and low chuckles echo hauntingly through the opulent room. Back at the Rowanster estate, Rebecca lies cocooned beneath a heavy blanket, her eyes hidden in shadow, still recovering from a day of feeling unwell, perhaps drinking a bit too much, and she calls softly for Rosaline to enter. Yet, as the door opens, it is Carlyle who steps in, wearing a radiant smile, asking if she has rested and slept well. She gasps in surprise, startled by his sudden appearance. He walks toward her with a composed yet gentle demeanor, hoping she hasn't been feeling too down and reassuring her that she need not worry about the Oaklean family anymore, claiming that he has already taken care of them. Shocked, she asks what he means by taking care of them, and he smiles reassuringly, insisting that her family will no longer trouble her. Flustered, she demands to know what has transpired. He then reminds her of their conversation 2 days prior, though she struggles to recall it, flinching as he calls her name again and sternly orders that she is not permitted to drink with anyone else but him, asking if she understands. She stares at him in bewilderment, still processing his words, while he, confident and slightly amused, decides to take her silence as agreement. She remains puzzled, calling out his name in disbelief, shouting in exasperation, asking what in the world she has done to merit such control. Early in the morning, Lady Adlete entered Rebecca's room, noticing that she had not come down for breakfast and had remained in bed all day yesterday, completely buried in her blankets. Seeing her now, Lady Adlete realized that Rebecca was simply suffering from a hangover. Rebecca, still cocooned in her covers, apologized quietly, and Lady Adlete reassured her, saying she understood how she felt while also urging her to consider her health. Rebecca nodded, her voice trembling in agreement. Charlotte, standing silently behind her mother, thought skeptically if that was all she had to say. Lady Adlete continued, informing Rebecca that the Duke had visited her family early that morning, and she herself could not simply overlook what had transpired, especially what Lord Oakleigh had said. Sitting up, Rebecca anxiously asked what he had said. Lady Adlete explained that she had heard he had threatened to break off the engagement. Worry flashed across Rebecca's face at the mention of William, but Lady Adlete calmly reassured her that no one could end an engagement with them so easily. It was crucial to teach him the meaning of keeping a promise to their family, no matter its nature. Still concerned, Rebecca asked what they would do if William truly attempted to break the engagement. Lady Adlete smiled slightly, saying that while they could not stop him if he was determined to face the consequences, she had already devised a plan. Rebecca's eyes widened as she asked what that plan might be, and Lady Adlete revealed that she intended to adopt her as her daughter, which startled both noble ladies. Charlotte, immediately worried, called out to her mother, but Lady Adlete reassured her, saying she would always remain her favorite daughter. Charlotte protested, insisting that this was not the issue she was concerned about. Rebecca, realizing the deeper implication, also felt shocked, and Lady Adlete agreed, noting that her father would likely not object either and might even prefer seeing his precious daughter become part of a duke's household rather than be left destitute on the streets. Charlotte, however, vehemently shouted that adopting her was out of the question and suggested alternative solutions, such as welcoming Rebecca as a daughter-in-law instead. Rebecca cried out at Charlotte in surprise, but Lady Adlete acknowledged that Charlotte had a point and agreed. When Rebecca implored her not to joke, Lady Adlete reassured her she was serious, saying it did not matter whether she was a stepdaughter or a daughter-in-law, for she had promised to care for her until the very end. Touched beyond words, Rebecca leapt forward and embraced Lady Adlete tightly, overwhelmed with gratitude and emotion. Lady Adlete gently pats Rebecca, telling her she knows it must have been incredibly difficult for her, and even Charlotte lets out a soft sigh, remarking that if she had a choice, she would rather have Rebecca as her sister-in-law than as a stepsister. After a moment, Lady Adlete turns to Rebecca and mentions that she will give her something to help with her hangover, calling over her maid. She explains that it is a magical item created by the desert nation, a small marvel they refer to as a type of motor. Rebecca, astonished that such intricate motors could exist on so small a scale, accepts the gift with a bright, delighted expression. Meanwhile, Charlotte nudges her mother, noting that it is time for them to leave, and Rebecca overhears them stepping out. Charlotte comments happily that she is glad Rebecca has recovered far more quickly than they had expected, and Lady Adelaide agrees with a smile. Curious, Charlotte then asks if her mother had been serious about the adoption proposal earlier, and Lady Adelaide confirms that she was indeed sincere, though she admits it will not be an easy process. Charlotte questions whether her hesitation is due to Rebecca's family, and Lady Adelaide, lost in thought, insists that it is not the case. She recalls the conversation she had the previous night with the Duke when she had proposed the idea and how he had insisted it would never happen. Now, reflecting on it, she feels a sense of quiet optimism about the plan. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a beautiful woman sings passionately on stage, her voice drawing applause from the background audience. A lady nearby praises Chloe for her breathtaking performance, declaring that she is undoubtedly the finest leading lady for the love of a noble and that no one can sing with such enchanting elegance. Her eyes then catch the necklace adorning Chloe's neck, and she asks with curiosity where she had acquired such a stunning piece. The necklace sparkles brilliantly as Chloe explains that she received it as a gift from her master, recalling the night it was handed to her. Her master had mentioned that they had heard troubling news, that Lord Moodle's second son had been harassing her. Chloe nods solemnly, admitting that she is terrified every day because of him. Her master reassures her that it is Rebecca's self-defense necklace and instructs her to keep it with her at all times to prevent any harm from coming her way. Chloe admits that she had actually been thinking of purchasing one herself, and her master firmly tells her to hold on to it constantly. Looking into the mirror in the present, she recalls repeatedly asking her master who sent it, but her master refuses to reveal the sender. Chloe wants to believe it was Lady Adelaide and thinks she should head home now. Suddenly, a man appears, and she turns sharply, startled, calling out Lord Gerard. He remarks that she always leaves so early and asks if she realizes how much it pains him. Chloe shouts at him to stop, insisting that she does not want him near her, but before she can retreat, he lunges forward, teasing that even her angry fits are adorable and reminding her of the passion in her eyes when she professed her love. Chloe panics, realizing that for the lyrics of the song alone, this confrontation has led her to a dead end. She notices the gate is locked and fears she must alarm the guards, thinking it should not be secured at this hour and suspecting that he may have done it. As he rushes toward her, she yells for him to stop, warning that if he takes another step, she will use the self-defense necklace. He smirks, questioning if she truly believes it will work, yet Chloe insists she will use it to protect herself. Her eyes widen as he scoffs, asking if a mere commoner dares to attack a noble like him. She recalls her master's instructions, quickly rubbing the necklace with her thumb and closing her eyes. A brilliant, blinding light erupts from the necklace, illuminating the entire room. Suddenly, blood bursts from him, splattering across Chloe and dripping everywhere, painting the room in a shocking crimson display. Feeling the darkness around her, Chloe realizes that the brilliant light from the necklace has vanished. She contemplates opening her eyes but pauses, detecting the sharp metallic scent of blood. Gasping, she takes in the horrifying scene before her and screams in terror. The scene then shifts to the Duke's guest room, where Rebecca carefully holds the necklace, asking Chloe if the item had been given to her. Chloe confirms, explaining that she believed it came from Lady Adelaide. The madam attempts to soothe her, gently mentioning that she trusts it is indeed her necklace. Observing the necklace, Rebecca's heartbeat quickens, and the madam reassures her not to worry, holding Chloe securely and promising to handle the situation. Rebecca, however, insists, addressing Lady Adelaide, suggesting that she examine Chloe's necklace as it appears to be an illegal imitation. Both women are stunned, while Rebecca explains that she had anticipated this might occur. Illegal knockoffs of magic items are often made to sabotage alchemists, recalling that her father was once wrongly blamed for an accident caused by a counterfeit of his weapon, though he eventually proved his innocence. Lady Adlite disagrees, warning that examining the necklace could prompt officials to investigate the incident, and they might question her for tampering with evidence. Rebecca rises, acknowledging the concern, and says she will seek Master Lloyd's assistance instead. Lady Adlet asks if she means the alchemist from before, and Ravika confirms, explaining that he has become an official member of the International Alchemist Association, so he can provide help, though she suspects this will become a long, arduous matter. The incident has even been reported in the newspaper, and the family faces public scrutiny. Seated together, the Duke remarks that he suspects this is not the end of the troubles, citing two similar cases. One occurred around noon yesterday when a horseman used Rebecca's self-defense ring on Marcus Cuthwood, causing the Marcus to suffocate and collapse, still unconscious. Charlotte is horrified, realizing the man suffocated, and even Rebecca struggles to understand, knowing the ring is designed only to induce sneezing and watery eyes. The Duke continues, noting the second incident happened last night when Lord Thahad followed a cafe employee to her residence, where her son used Rebecca's stun earrings. According to the physician, the Baron will likely never regain full use of his right hand. Rebecca, alarmed, asks about Lord Moodle's son, learning that he has completely lost his eyesight, causing her to panic, her heartbeat racing. The Duke tries to calm her, emphasizing that all these men deserved their fate, as Gerard had stalked Chloe and coerced her to reciprocate his love, and the Marquess had often mistreated his horsemen. Charlotte agrees, noting that the son acted to protect his mother, and Lady Adlite concurs, affirming that they received the justice they deserved. The room is filled with a tense whiteness when the Duke adds that the confiscated ring and earrings bore black stains, suggesting, according to Lady Adlet, that they were likely produced using the same malicious method. The Duke informs her further, explaining that the users of these dangerous items were all commoners who had received the items from an anonymous noble, making it evident that this was the malicious work of a single individual. Rebecca sinks into deep thought, troubled, realizing that her creations, so much like her own children, were now being used to frame her falsely. She knows she must prove her innocence. Turning to Carlyle, she asks what will happen next. Carlyle explains that the three affected noble families have submitted a petition to the Emperor, demanding that the commoners be executed for harming a noble and requesting a ban on all of Rebecca's products. Charlotte erupts in anger. The madam immediately realizes that this is likely the true goal of the perpetrator, as the nobles could also sue Rebecca for damages, escalating the threat further. Carlyle emphasizes that the incident has not only drawn the attention of the nobles, but also of the imperial family, heightening the tension and resulting in a scheduled hearing in a few days, which shocks Rebecca deeply. Rebecca, panicked, remarks that someone is attempting to remove her from high society. The madam snaps, reassuring her that such a thing will never happen and that they will reveal the complete truth in the hearing. Charlotte also agrees, urging Rebecca not to yield to the perpetrator's demands, and Rebecca nods, promising she will do everything in her power. Lady Adlet rises, instructing Rebecca to visit the company immediately to prepare for the upcoming hearing, asking her daughter to manage the estate in her absence, and telling Charlotte to assist and take responsibility as well. She further states that she will make her own preparations while away, telling Rebecca not to worry because everything will be handled perfectly. Now only Carlyle and Rebecca remain. Calling her name with a mixture of sadness and resolve, he asks how she plans to proceed, knowing the gravity of the situation. She admits that she did not expect this matter to escalate into a full hearing. He reassures her that he will protect her, but tears begin streaming down her face as she worries that the hearing could endanger their contract. Carlyle comforts her, asserting that if such a risk existed, he would never have offered the contract in the first place, yet she still frets, understanding the implications of a noble hearing. Holding her shoulders firmly, he tells her she cannot give up because he will not allow anything to happen to her. Her tears continue, but she whispers that she is not surrendering, only considering the worst-case scenario. He suddenly embraces her tightly, urging her not to overthink, promising that he will keep her safe at all costs. Meanwhile, in the Karsius household, Haley is smiling while diligently kneading dough when someone suddenly approaches her, questioning if she is responsible. She turns with a playful smile, replying that she has no idea what he means, hiding the secret with quiet amusement. Lord Karsius, determined, demands the truth from Haley, and she grins, admitting that she is indeed responsible. He shouts at her, asking what she was thinking, and she calmly explains that she had warned him if he could not find a solution, she would take matters into her own hands, using any means necessary. Her father warns her that no secret can remain hidden forever, questioning if she realizes the consequences once people discover she was behind it all. Haley walks toward the window, confidently stating that it does not matter because he will handle it, asking him if he will not. He questions why she is so obsessed with the Duke, and she shouts back that he is the only one capable of protecting her, unlike her father. Karsius, shocked, asks who she enlisted to carry out her plan, and she reveals that she instructed the Vice Master of the Mages Guild. Karsius exclaims in disbelief, "How could you?" But she reassures him not to worry, explaining that no one will find out. All she did was inform the Vice Master that Rebecca was planning to sell even more powerful self-defense items. She reasons that the Mages Guild is often hired to act as bodyguards, so if more effective self-defense products hit the market, people would no longer need mages to protect them. Karsius, in awe, remarks that if only she had been born a son, she would have been incredibly clever, and he presses further, asking who delivered the items to the commoners. Haley assures him not to worry, noting that the recipients were sworn to silence, yet Karsius insists on meeting them. She grins, replying that the dead cannot speak, questioning her father if she is correct. As night falls, lying on her bed, Haley reflects on her father's words, wondering why she is so fixated on the Duke, and realizing it may be because of her father's influence. She recalls the abduction of the Karsius daughter, which all began when Johann Karsius brutally wiped out a group of criminal mages, inadvertently harming innocent mages caught in the crossfire. This atrocity prompted vengeful mages to abduct Haley. Firmly believing that her father would rescue her, she recalls that her mother died giving birth and that her father was her only protector. Yet, hearing the criminals claim that the Duke had no intention to pay ransom and attended a ball without concern, she fears he does not truly care. Deeply saddened, she struggles to understand why her father cannot save her, feeling hopeless until Carlyle suddenly arrives. He enters, rescuing her under Duke Karsius's orders, apologizing for the delay. Haley removes the tape from her mouth, relieved, as Carlyle reassures her not to worry because he is there. From that day, she realizes that he is the only one who can protect her and lies awake, pondering whether his love for her is the reason he saved her. But either way, it does not matter to her because she knows he will make it clear just how deeply he loves her in the upcoming days during the hearing. Rebecca feels intensely tense, her heart pounding as the judge calls the court to order, announcing the commencement of the hearing and noting that the victims are currently undergoing medical treatment and are represented by their respective families who will present their statements. Lord Moodle rises, identifying himself as the father of Gerard, one of the victims in this case, his voice trembling as he cries, expressing that the incident has left his son permanently blind and that it breaks his heart to consider the hardships his son must endure for the rest of his life. He demands that the person responsible for this atrocity be executed and that all dangerous and violent magical items be banned, as he wishes to prevent any more victims suffering the same fate as his son. Furthermore, he insists that the creator of these perilous items, Lady Rebecca, must be held fully accountable for her actions. Following him, another man steps forward, introducing himself as the father of Lord Thahad, and then the wife of Marquess Cuthwood takes her turn to speak, her voice shaking as she recounts the impact of the events on her family. Rebecca scans the room, her gaze sharp as she absorbs the harsh criticisms directed at her, feeling both frustration and disbelief, especially at the absurd demand that innocent commoners be executed for actions they did not willingly commit. The judge then calls on her to make her statement, and she steps forward with measured composure, noting that before she can defend her work, she must clarify one critical point. She speaks firmly, emphasizing that she is addressing the crimes of all victims in the case, which immediately angers some of the family members present. One man shouts that defaming his son will not reduce her responsibility. The judge forcefully demands silence, warning that anyone speaking without permission will be removed from the hearing. Rebecca defends the commoners passionately, insisting that they were merely trying to protect themselves and appealing to the majesty to view the situation with impartiality. The prince, perplexed, asks why she is defending the accused commoners before defending her own creations, and Rebecca explains that while they are technically the accused, they are equally victims, yet barred from attending the hearing due to their low social standing, forced to wait outside for the verdict. She then addresses the magic items responsible for the incident, recounting that when she first developed her self-defense products, they were intended as minor protective tools. They were ineffective and considered failures, making it impossible for them to fatally injure anyone. She concludes that her creations must have been illegally counterfeited and formally requests a disclosure of the evidence. Upon receiving permission, she produces her necklace, pointing out the black impurity visible on it, explaining that such a mark appears only when an item has been tampered with illegally. The judge asks if she can prove this, and her lawyer confirms that they can, requesting that Master Lloyd from the International Alchemist Association be called as a witness. Lloyd introduces himself as the association's representative, explaining that the original magic circle was forcibly altered, which confirms that the item was illegally modified, likely by a mage. Lord Carsius, in a panic, questions how Lloyd can be so certain, and Lloyd responds that the traces of mana left behind reveal the tampering. If an alchemist had modified it normally, no such residual mana would exist, as the mana tracking spell, developed jointly by the International Alchemist Association and the Magic Tower, would have identified the culprit in less than a day, asking Duke Carsius if he concurs with this expert testimony. The prince turns to Master Lloyd, asking if he is absolutely certain that he can identify the culprit, and Lloyd responds confidently that yes, with the association's advanced mana tracking spell, the perpetrator can be found in less than a day. The prince then glances at Lord Carsius, seeking his opinion, and Carsius cautiously acknowledges that while theoretically possible, every individual's unique mana signature does make it plausible. Lloyd elaborates that the International Alchemist Association strictly prohibits the creation, distribution, or alteration of counterfeit magic items, marking this incident as a clear violation of international policy. Consequently, the association has emphasized that the case must be treated with the utmost seriousness. Whispers ripple through the audience as Rebecca's eyes meet Lloyd's, and he quietly reassures her not to worry. Her lawyer also supports her position, asserting that her self-defense products were illegally modified with malicious intent, yet in their original form, the items are entirely safe. Therefore, he formally requests that all damage claims and lawsuits against Lady Rebecca be immediately withdrawn, emphasizing that the true culprits are the mages who performed the modifications and the noble who conspired with them, both of whom should face accountability. The prince, still processing this information, looks puzzled, and Rebecca patiently explains that none of the commoners involved purchased the items themselves. Each testified that an anonymous noble had sent the modified products as a gift. Shocked, the prince asks for confirmation, and the judge affirms that all three statements are consistent, proving the noble's interference beyond doubt. Relieved, Rebecca beams at her lawyer, thankful for the validation, then turns her gaze toward the audience, catching the Duke smiling warmly at her. Suddenly, a man named Lesta rises from the crowd, requesting permission to speak, insisting that the self-defense products should still be banned and that the commoners should face punishment. Rebecca, stunned, turns to him, her mind racing as she questions his identity. Calmly, she addresses him, asserting that her creations had been illegally modified and exploited with ill intentions, and she emphasizes that her items, as originally designed, are entirely safe. Lesta, however, smirks and acknowledges her point, but argues that self-defense magic items remain inherently dangerous for other reasons, claiming that her products pose a threat not only to personal safety, but also to the established hierarchy and order of their elite, highly stratified society, suggesting that their widespread use could destabilize social norms and privileges. The audience murmurs in mixed agreement and confusion, adding tension to the already charged courtroom atmosphere. Rebecca freezes in shock, her voice rising as she shouts, while the audience murmurs and whispers anxiously among themselves. Suddenly, the judge interrupts, directing his words sharply at Marquess Lesta, instructing him that this is not the proper forum to voice political opinions. Yet the Marquess argues vehemently, claiming that nothing could have a greater impact on the stability of the empire than the current situation. Even Madame Adlite exhales softly in concern, and Charlotte leans forward, asking in confusion what he is referring to. Marquess Lesta speaks, explaining that nobles maintain their status and exist as an elite class because they rely upon the stability of the imperial court and the labor of the commoners. He continues, emphasizing that the stipends and privileges provided by the imperial court ultimately originate from commoner taxes, the very foundation that sustains both the nobility and the empire itself. Raising his voice, he asserts that Lady Rebecca's magical creations risk destabilizing this balance because they encourage commoners to question their societal role and independence. Rebecca, bewildered, interjects, asking what her self-defense items have to do with any of this, and he replies firmly that she seems not to comprehend the danger. Empowering commoners to protect themselves undermines the need for noble oversight. He reminds her that her items, initially failed attempts at small weapons, if widely distributed, could grant the masses capabilities that threaten noble authority. Members of the audience nod and shout in agreement, warning that commoners must not be allowed to challenge their rulers or think themselves equal. The prince groans in frustration, and the judge calls for order, instructing everyone not to speak without permission. Marquess Lesta turns back to Rebecca, claiming that she should understand his position, being a noble herself, and Rebecca calmly acknowledges this, though she then presses a critical question. Why punish the innocent commoners who were manipulated? He admits that while the commoners themselves committed no wrongdoing and were indeed exploited, their actions caused irreparable harm to three nobles, and excusing them would set a dangerous precedent. Rebecca counters, asking if he truly believes that potential disadvantage to the nobles in the future justifies punishing the innocent, and he confirms, insisting that releasing them without consequences would embolden commoners to disrespect nobles. Madame Adlite intervenes quietly, noting that Rebecca is being used as a scapegoat, further pointing out that this effort aims to weaken the imperial family, since the authority of the nobility is intrinsically tied to the strength of the imperial power, and any erosion at the top threatens the entire hierarchical structure. Certainly, a woman rises from the audience, requesting permission to speak, and once granted, she introduces herself as Marchioness Tatiana. She begins firmly, stating that this entire incident only happened because the nobles themselves committed crimes and neglected their fundamental duties to protect the citizens of the empire. It is utterly ridiculous, she argues, to spare the criminal nobles merely because they were critically injured while punishing innocent commoners who had no part in the wrongdoing. A man in the audience interrupts her, claiming he never said the nobles did not commit a crime, but doesn't she think they have already paid for their sins, having been crippled for the rest of their lives? Tatiana sharply disagrees, insisting that commoners require a way to defend themselves because the nobles cannot possibly protect every citizen at all times. The man objects, telling her that this is not her place to speak, but she snaps back, asserting that this is her hearing and shouting at him, questioning who he is to dismiss her right to address the court, even further implying that perhaps he was involved in the crime himself, since he is presenting the argument in such a suspicious way. She continues, emphasizing that while it is certainly the nobles' duty to protect the empire's citizens as best as they can, it is practically impossible to prevent all crime. Otherwise, all offenses would have ceased to exist entirely. Raising her voice, She points out that crimes such as burglary, fraud, assault, theft, and other abuses are still occurring even at this very moment. And if the nobles cannot fully safeguard their citizens, they must at least empower them to protect themselves effectively. The man still disagrees, addressing the prince and claiming that she is speaking nonsense, asserting that commoners who become victims because they fail to obey curfew rules are entirely to blame for their misfortune. Tatiana responds, pointing out that he is repeating that same absurd argument again and demanding when he will start speaking with actual sense. She insists that the curfew cannot be used as an excuse because criminals would never respect such rules anyway. Ravika watches in alarm, completely bewildered as the two argue fiercely in front of everyone, unsure how to process the chaos unfolding. The man remains stubborn, insisting that they must prevent people from engaging in nighttime activities in order to reduce crime rates. Tatiana counters passionately, noting that such measures disproportionately affect those most vulnerable, particularly women, children, and other defenseless citizens. Suddenly, the man claims that the problem arises because women are granted too much freedom in society, which shocks and frightens both Tatiana and Rebecca. He continues his reasoning, pointing to all the robbery cases, emphasizing that many victims were women who dared to venture out at night. The princess is growing visibly frustrated and overwhelmed by his audacity, and at that moment, Tatiana stands up, her voice ringing with authority, shouting that it is enough and no longer acceptable to continue such ridiculous claims. Rebecca gasps, staring at her in awe, while even the prince recoils, intimidated and fearful of the Empress's commanding presence. We've reached the end of this video. Please like and subscribe to show your support.